I stood on the porch of our new home, breathing in the fresh sea air mixed with the scent of jasmine from the neighboring garden. Before me lay the San Francisco Bay, shimmering in the rays of the setting sun. The waves softly lapped at the shore, as if inviting us to start a new life in this remarkable city. Michael came up to me and gently wrapped his arm around my shoulders. "What do you think, Emma?" he asked with a warm smile. I looked at him and felt a warmth spread through my chest. "This is exactly the place I've always dreamed of," I replied. "A house with history, a view of the bay, and so many opportunities to truly make it our own." Our Victorian mansion was full of character. Carved wooden details, stained glass windows, creaky floors that told stories of past generations. I saw not just a building, but a canvas for our future memories. "I'm glad you're happy," Michael said, lightly squeezing my shoulder. "Starting fresh is just what we need." In the days that followed, I immersed myself in renovations and decorating. I wandered through local markets in search of antique furniture, chose fabrics for curtains, and discussed the restoration of the fireplace with craftsmen. Every corner of the house was filling with our presence, reflecting our tastes and dreams. One evening, settled on the floor amidst boxes of belongings, we drank wine and listened to the quiet murmur of the city outside the windows. "You know," I began, gazing at the twinkling lights of the Golden Gate Bridge, "I feel like something special awaits us here. As if this city has surprises in store for us." Michael smiled and raised his glass. "To new beginnings and to us," he said, and we clinked glasses, savoring the moment. A few weeks had passed since we moved in, and the house was beginning to feel cozy and warm. One evening, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, Michael approached me with a thoughtful expression on his face. "Emma, we need to talk," he began, sitting down beside me on the couch. I felt a slight twinge of anxiety. "Did something happen?" "I got a message from Alex. He got into grad school here in San Francisco and is asking if he can stay with us during his studies." I smiled, trying to dispel his doubts. "That's wonderful news. I've always wanted to get to know your son better." Michael sighed. "I'm just not sure how it's going to go. We're not as close as I'd like to be. After the divorce from his mother, our relationship became complicated." I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Maybe this is a chance to reconnect. Let's give it a try." A few days later, Alex arrived. A tall, slender young man with dark hair and deep eyes, he looked both confident and a little wary. I greeted him at the door with a friendly smile. "Hello, Alex. Welcome to our home," I said, extending my hand. He gave a slight smile and shook my hand. "Thank you, Emma. Nice to meet you." We helped him carry his things to his room on the second floor. As we climbed the stairs, I noticed a guitar case slung over his back. "Are you a musician?" I asked. Alex glanced at the guitar as if recalling something pleasant. "Yes, I've been playing since childhood. It's more of a hobby." "How interesting." "I love music too," I replied enthusiastically. "Maybe you'll play for us sometime?" He nodded but said nothing. A shadow of doubt flickered in his eyes. In the days that followed, I tried to create a comfortable atmosphere for Alex. I cooked his favorite dishes, as Michael had suggested, and offered to show him around the city. But Alex remained withdrawn, spending time either at his classes or in his room. One evening, when Michael was working late, I heard a melody coming from Alex's room. It was a jazz piece, familiar and beloved. I couldn't resist and gently knocked on the door. "Alex, may I come in?" I asked. After a brief pause, the door opened slightly. "Yes, of course," he replied. I entered and saw him sitting on the edge of the bed with his guitar in hand. "You play beautifully," I said sincerely. He blushed slightly. "Thanks, I'm just unwinding after studying." I recognized the tune. It's Take 5, right? Alex raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Yeah, you listen to jazz?" "I love it, especially the classic pieces. They're so deep and emotional." He smiled a little wider. "I don't often meet people my age who share that interest." "Well, maybe we can go to a concert together sometime. There are a lot of jazz clubs in the city. Alex thought for a moment. That would be great. From that day on, a dialogue began between us. We talked about music, exchanged recommendations, and shared impressions. I could feel the icy wall between us slowly melting. One Saturday, we decided to explore the city. Michael was busy with work, so I suggested showing Alex some local sights. Passing by a small music shop, I stopped. Want to go in? You can sometimes find rare records here, I suggested. He smiled. I'd love to. Look, Alex exclaimed, pulling out a record. It's the first pressing of Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. I stepped closer. Incredible. I've been looking for it for a long time. He looked at me with a sparkle in his eyes. How about we get it together? Great idea, I agreed. We can take turns listening. We left the shop, discussing our plans for listening to the record. I felt light and happy. Maybe we could really become friends. That evening, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, I reflected on the day. Michael noticed my good mood. You seem to have had a nice day, he said, sitting down beside me. Yes, Alex and I had a good time. I'm glad we're starting to connect. He smiled. That's wonderful. Thank you, Emma. I know it's not easy for him right now. I placed my hand on his. Everything will be fine. The main thing is patience and understanding. One cool autumn evening, I suggested to Alex that we visit a new jazz club I had heard about from the neighbors. Michael was busy with work, and I thought it was a great opportunity to continue our musical journey. Alex, how about listening to some live music tonight? I asked, peeking into his room. He looked up from his book and smiled. Sounds great. Which club are you thinking of? It's called the Golden Saxophone. They say talented local musicians perform there. Then let's not waste any time, he replied, setting the book aside. The club turned out to be a cozy place with soft lighting and the atmosphere of old jazz. We settled at a small table near the stage. The musicians started playing and the melody filled the space, piercing straight into the heart. This piece is one of my favorites, Alex whispered, leaning toward me. I nodded, savoring the moment. There's something special about live music. It connects people without words. After the performance, we approached the bar to order drinks. The bartender, overhearing our conversation about music, suggested we visit an old vinyl record store nearby. You'll find real treasures there, he said with a smile. The next day, following his advice, we headed to the store. It was a small building with a faded sign and dusty windows. Inside, we were greeted by an elderly man with a kind smile. Looking for something specific? He asked. We're just browsing, thanks, Alex replied. We wandered between the shelves, examining the covers of old albums. Suddenly, my eyes fell on a record I had been searching for. It can't be. It's John Coltrane's Blue Train in the first edition, I exclaimed. Alex came closer. I've also been wanting to find this one. It's amazing that it's here. We glanced at each other and laughed. Maybe we should split it again? He suggested. It seems to be becoming a tradition, I smiled. On the way home, we discussed music and shared life stories. I learned that Alex not only enjoyed music, but also composed his own pieces. Why have you never played your own compositions? I asked. He shrugged. I'm not confident enough. It's something personal. I'd love to hear them. I think you have a talent. Alex looked at me warmly. Thank you, Emma. That means a lot to me. In the evening, we settled in the living room, listening to the new record. The sounds of the saxophone filled the room, creating a cozy and calm atmosphere. I realized that I hadn't felt such harmony in a long time. I'm glad we moved here, I said, looking at the twinkling lights of the city outside the window. And I'm glad we've grown closer, Alex replied quietly. There was an understanding between us that was hard to describe with words. It was not just a shared love for music, but a deep emotional connection. I felt I could be open with him, share things I had kept to myself for a long time. Sometimes, I feel like music says what we can't express ourselves, I said. Alex nodded. It reflects our feelings and experiences. It helps us understand ourselves and others. We sat together, listening to the melodies, and time seemed to stand still. At that moment, I realized that our friendship had become more than just a shared interest. But I tried to push these thoughts away, reminding myself of boundaries and responsibilities. When Michael came home, he found us listening to music. "What a cozy evening you're having," he remarked with a smile. "Yes, we found a rare record and decided to listen to it," I replied, trying to hide my embarrassment. "I'm glad you're getting along," he said, hugging me. "Maybe next time I'll join you." "Of course," Alex nodded, but I noticed a shadow of unease in his eyes. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. Thoughts of Alex and our growing bond wouldn't leave me alone. I knew I was on a dangerous path, but I didn't know how to stop these feelings. In the morning, I decided to focus on work and household chores, hoping to distract myself. But every time our paths crossed, I felt a flutter and excitement. "Emma, is everything okay?" Michael asked at breakfast. "You seem preoccupied." "Just a lot on my mind." I brushed it off. "Nothing serious." The autumn rain drummed on the roof, creating a melodic rhythm that accompanied the entire evening. The sky was covered with heavy clouds, and the city was enveloped in a soft gray twilight. I stood by the window, watching the raindrops trickle down the glass, leaving winding trails behind. Suddenly, the lights went out in the house. "Looks like a power outage," Alex said, appearing in the doorway of the living room with a flashlight in hand. I sighed. "Just perfect timing. Michael's still at work, and it seems like we're stuck without power." He smiled. "No big deal. I have an idea." Alex headed to the fireplace and started to light a fire. The flames quickly flared up, filling the room with warm light and a sense of coziness. "You always seem to have everything under control," I noted, settling down on the soft rug in front of the fireplace. "I just like being helpful," he replied, sitting next to me. "Let's find some candles to set the mood." We arranged candles around the room, and their flickering light gave the setting a magical quality. I brought a blanket and offered some hot tea. The rain outside grew even heavier, but inside it was calm and pleasant. "It reminds me of old times when people would gather by the fire and tell stories," I said, wrapping myself in the blanket. Alex nodded. "Maybe we should do that. Share some stories with each other." I thought for a moment. "All right. What would you like to know?" He looked at the flames. "Tell me about your dreams, what you really want out of life." I smiled sadly. Sometimes it feels like I've lost touch with my dreams. I've always tried to be good for everyone, for my family, for my friends, but somewhere along the way, I forgot about myself." Alex looked at me with understanding. "That's easy to do. Sometimes we get so caught up in others' expectations that we forget our own desires." "Yes, exactly." "And you? What do you dream about?" I asked, shifting the focus to him. He sighed heavily. "Honestly, I feel lost. My studies don't bring me any joy. I thought grad school was what I wanted, but now I'm not so sure." "Why do you think that?" I asked in surprise. Alex looked away. "It just doesn't feel right. I'm drawn to music, to creativity, but an academic career weighs on me, like a heavy burden." "Have you talked to Michael about this?" He gave a bitter smile. He's always wanted me to succeed in science. I don't want to disappoint him." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes you have to think about yourself. Living someone else's dreams means losing yourself." Alex looked into my eyes. "You're the first person who truly understands me." A silence fell between us, filled with an unspoken understanding. I felt our souls drawing closer, connected by shared experiences. When I was your age, I also stood at a crossroads," I shared. "I was afraid to step into the unknown, but then I realized that the worst thing is to regret what wasn't done." He listened intently, and I saw a spark of hope light up in his eyes. "What would you advise me to do?" he asked quietly. Follow your heart. If music is what makes you happy, maybe you should give yourself a chance. Alex smiled. You're right. I'll think about it. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder startled us both. I involuntarily moved closer to him. "The storm isn't joking around," I said with a nervous laugh. He looked at me gently. "Don't worry, I'm here." Our eyes met, and in that moment, time seemed to stop. I felt my heart begin to beat faster. Realizing the situation, I quickly looked away. "Maybe I should check if the power is back on," I said, trying to get up. Alex gently held my hand. "Emma, thank you. For listening. For your support." I nodded, unsure of what to say. My emotions were overwhelming, and I was afraid to acknowledge them. "I think we both need some rest," I finally said, freeing my hand. He let me go, and I headed toward the stairs. As I climbed up, I felt mixed emotions. The joy of our closeness and the fear of where this might lead. Lying in bed, I listened to the rain continuing to tap on the windows. Thoughts of Alex wouldn't leave me alone. His revelations, his gaze, his touch. All of it stirred my soul. The next day at breakfast, Alex seemed pensive. Michael, oblivious to anything amiss, was talking about his plans for the weekend. "How about a trip out of town?" "We could get some fresh air," he suggested. "Sounds good," I replied, trying to sound calm. Alex only nodded, avoiding eye contact with me. Throughout the day, I noticed how he kept his distance. It made me feel a sense of loss and regret. In the evening, gathering my thoughts, I approached his room and knocked. "May I come in?" After a brief pause, the door opened. Alex looked tired. "Is everything all right?" I asked. "Just doing a lot of thinking about what we talked about yesterday." "And what did you decide?" "I've decided to take a break from school, to try pursuing music, but I don't know how to tell my father." I understood his fears. "If you'd like, I can be there with you when you talk to him." He smiled gratefully. "That would be great." Autumn in San Francisco brought cool weather and the bright colors of the leaves. I had just completed a major renovation project in one of the rooms in our house. A historic library with a high ceiling and massive wooden shelves. It had been a long-time dream of mine, and now, standing in the center of the newly restored space, I felt pride and satisfaction. Michael hugged me, looking around. "Emma, this is amazing. You've done an incredible job. I can't even believe it's the same house." I smiled. "Thank you. I'm glad you like it." At that moment, his phone rang. Michael glanced at the screen and frowned. "Sorry, I need to take this." He stepped aside, and I overheard fragments of the conversation. When he returned, his face was concerned. "What happened?" I asked. "There's an urgent situation at work. I have to leave for a few days. I know it's not the best timing, but they can't manage without me." I tried to hide my disappointment. "Of course I understand. Work is work." Michael took my hands. "I promise as soon as I get back, we'll properly celebrate your achievement." "I'll be waiting," I smiled. After he left, the house felt empty. In the evening, I decided to cook dinner to distract myself. Looking in the fridge, I realized there weren't many groceries. Just then, Alex walked into the kitchen. "Is something wrong?" he asked, noticing my pensive expression. "Just trying to figure out what to make for dinner. Looks like I'll have to improvise." He smiled. "I can help if you don't mind. I have a few recipes up my sleeve." "I'd love your help." We began cooking together, exchanging jokes and sharing funny stories. Alex turned out to be a great cook, and I was surprised at how easily and naturally we communicated. "You know, this is the best way to spend an evening," he said, stirring the sauce. "Cooking in good company." "I agree," I replied, chopping vegetables. I haven't felt this relaxed in a long time. Dinner turned out delicious. We sat at the table, lit candles, and poured ourselves glasses of wine. The conversation flowed effortlessly, with topics shifting from one to another. We laughed, recalling funny incidents from our lives, and talked about music and films. I'm glad we've become so close, Alex said, looking at me over the rim of his glass. I used to feel a bit like an outsider here. You're part of our family, I said softly, and I'm happy we can spend time together. The wine gradually relaxed us, and the atmosphere became increasingly intimate. At some point, I noticed his gaze lingering on me longer than usual. Emma, may I confess something? He asked quietly. I felt my heart start to beat faster. Of course. You're an amazing person. Your kindness, your understanding. I haven't felt this kind of support in a long time. I smiled, trying to hide my embarrassment. It's nice to hear that. You're also a very talented and interesting young man. An uneasy silence hung between us, filled with tension. I realized that boundaries were starting to blur, and that scared me. I think I should clear the table, I said, trying to diffuse the situation. But as I stood up to collect the plates, Alex also got up. Our hands touched, and an electric charge passed between us. I looked into his eyes and saw a reflection of my own feelings. Confusion, desire, fear. Emma, he whispered, taking a step closer. The next moment, our lips met. The kiss was soft, gentle. The night passed in a blur. It happened. In the morning, I found Alex in the kitchen. He looked tired but was trying to keep calm. Good morning, I said hesitantly. Morning, he replied, avoiding my gaze. We need to talk, I began. It was a mistake on both our parts. We need to set boundaries and stick to them. Alex nodded. Agreed. I don't want to ruin our family. When Michael returned home, I tried to act as usual, but he noticed my nervousness. Emma, is everything all right? He asked, hugging me. Yes, just a little tired, I lied, avoiding his eyes. How about we go somewhere for the weekend? Get away from the city for a bit. That would be great, I replied, trying to smile. After that moment in the kitchen, Alex and I tried to avoid each other, immersing ourselves in our own tasks. I focused on home projects, while he spent more time on his studies and with friends. Yet, despite our efforts to keep our distance, fate kept bringing us together in the shared spaces of the house. One morning at breakfast, Michael shared some exciting news. There's a charity event being planned in the community to support a children's center. I thought we could participate. I brightened up. That's a great idea. I've been wanting to contribute to our neighborhood for a while. Michael nodded. Unfortunately, I'll be tied up with work, but I'm sure you and Alex can handle it. I shot a quick glance at Alex. He met my eyes and smiled slightly. I'm ready to help, he said. In the following days, we threw ourselves into preparations for the charity evening. We had to organize an auction, invite musicians, and decorate the venue. There was a lot of work to do, and it helped distract us from our inner turmoil. We met in local cafes to discuss plans and called potential sponsors. Working together, I felt the same ease and understanding that had existed between us before what happened. But now, the shadow of the past hung over us, and we both tried not to cross any boundaries. I think it would be great to invite local music bands, Alex suggested as he looked over a list of contacts. I agree. It will attract more people and make the evening unforgettable, I replied, making notes in my notebook. Sometimes our hands would accidentally touch, and I noticed how he would pull us away, trying not to meet my eyes. The weight of guilt lay on our shoulders, but we kept pressing forward, determined to make the event a success. On the day of the charity evening, the hall was filled with guests. Lights sparkled everywhere. Live music played, people mingled, and donations were being made. I stood by the entrance, greeting arrivals, and felt proud of the work we had done. Alex approached me, holding 2 glasses of champagne. We did it, he said with a smile, handing me one of the glasses. Yes, and the results exceeded all expectations, I replied, clinking my glass with his. We watched as the guests enjoyed the evening, and for a moment we forgot our worries. But the joy was short-lived. Seeing the happy faces around us, I felt a rising sense of guilt within me. Emma, are you all right? Alex asked, noticing the change in my mood. I sighed. I'm just thinking about how complicated everything has become. I don't want our mistakes to ruin everything we have. He lowered his eyes. I think about that too. Maybe we should have an honest conversation. I nodded, but not here. Let's meet tomorrow and talk it through. The next day, we decided to walk along the waterfront. The sea breeze was refreshing, and the sound of the waves helped calm our nerves a little. I've decided to accept an internship offer abroad, Alex said as we walked. It'll help me find clarity and start with a clean slate. The news took me by surprise. You're leaving? Yes, it's not an easy decision, but I believe it's for the best for everyone. Returning home, I shared the news with Michael. Alex has decided to take an internship abroad. It's a big opportunity for him. Michael was surprised. That's unexpected, but I'm happy for him. Maybe it will help him figure out his future. In the days that followed, we helped Alex prepare for his departure. The house was once again filled with hustle and bustle, but this time it was a pleasant kind of chaos. I decided to keep moving forward, appreciating what I had, and working on becoming a better person. After our return from the airport, where we had seen Alex off, the house felt quiet and empty. However, it soon became clear that Alex had decided to stay for a few more days before leaving, to wrap up some things and say goodbye to friends. I tried to keep my distance, focusing on my projects and volunteer work, but Michael began to notice changes in my behavior. During dinner, he looked at me closely. Emma, you've seemed tired and distracted lately. Is everything all right? I looked up from my plate, trying to muster a light smile. There's just a lot going on with the charity center and home projects. Nothing serious. He frowned. Are you sure? It feels like you've been distant. And Alex is often away as well. Did something happen between you two? I felt my heart start to race. No, of course not. He just has a lot to do before he leaves. Michael leaned back in his chair, keeping his eyes on me. You know, I feel like something's off between us. Maybe we should spend some time together, reconnect? I nodded, trying to conceal my anxiety. That's a good idea. What do you suggest? He smiled. How about we head to the cabin in the redwood forest for the weekend? It's been a while since we've been there. The fresh air and nature will do us good. If Alex can join us, I think that would be wonderful. Michael looked at me warmly. Great. I'll talk to him. It'll be good for all of us to spend time together before he leaves. That evening, Michael told me that Alex had agreed to go. I felt mixed emotions. On one hand, joy at the prospect of spending time as a family. On the other, fear that unresolved tensions might surface. The weather on the day we left was beautiful. We packed our things into the car and set off. As the cityscape gave way to dense forests, I felt the tension inside me growing. The cabin in the woods was cozy and warm. Tall redwoods surrounded us on all sides, creating a sense of seclusion. Michael started a fire in the fireplace, and we settled in for the evening with board games and conversations. Remember when we vacationed here a few years ago? Michael asked, pouring hot tea for everyone. That was a wonderful time. Alex smiled. Yeah, that was the first time I saw real stars without the city lights. I joined the conversation. There really is something special about this place. It's like time slows down. Despite the outward calm, I could feel the underlying tension. Michael occasionally cast studying glances at me, and Alex seemed pensive. The next day, we went for a hike in the forest. The trail led to a small waterfall where we stopped to take pictures. Michael took out the camera and suggested a family photo. Stand closer together, he said, aiming the lens at Alex and me. We stepped closer to each other, and at that moment, I felt Alex's hand lightly brush mine. I quickly pulled away, hoping Michael hadn't noticed. In the evening, after dinner, Michael suggested we discuss future plans. Alex, tell us more about your internship. What will you be doing? Alex set down his fork. I have the opportunity to work at a music academy abroad. It's a chance to develop my skills and find my path in music. Michael frowned. Music? I thought you were going to continue your graduate studies here. Alex sighed. I've realized that music is what I really want to pursue. Studying wasn't bringing me any joy. Michael raised his eyebrows. And you decided this without consulting me? This is a serious step. I tried to intervene. Michael, maybe we should support his choice. This is an important decision for him. He looked at me with suspicion. Did you know about this beforehand? I felt a knot tighten inside me. He mentioned it, but he wanted to tell you himself. Michael leaned back in his chair. It seems there's a lot I don't know about what's happening in our family. Alex stood up. I didn't mean to cause problems. I just thought this was my decision to make. Your decision affects all of us, Michael responded sharply. Alex shot me a quick glance and walked out of the room. I was left alone with Michael, who was watching me intently. What's going on, Emma? I feel like there's something between you two that I don't know about. I tried to stay calm. You're worried, and I understand, but please don't jump to conclusions. He stood up and came closer. Why are you defending him? And why are you both acting so strange? I lowered my eyes. We just want everything to go smoothly before he leaves. Michael sighed. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. It's just that lately I've been feeling distant. I approached him and took his hand. Let's try to enjoy this weekend. We all need a break. He nodded, but I could still see the concern in his eyes. The night was restless. I lay awake for a long time, listening to the rustling of the forest outside the window. Suddenly, I heard quiet footsteps in the hallway. Getting up, I left the room and saw Michael standing in front of Alex's door with an envelope in his hand. Michael, what are you doing? I whispered. He turned around. I found this in the living room. It's a letter from Alex to you. I felt a chill run down my spine. Give it to me. He tightened his grip on the envelope. Explain what's going on first. I sighed, realizing there was no point in hiding the truth any longer. Michael, it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. His voice was filled with pain and anger. At that moment, Alex's door opened. He looked alarmed. What's going on here? Michael turned to him. I want to know what's happening between you two. What is this letter? Alex turned pale. It's just a personal letter. Nothing more? Then why are you writing to my wife in the middle of the night? Michael shouted. I tried to intervene. Please, let's all calm down and discuss this in the morning. But Michael had already lost his composure. No, I want to know the truth now. Alex took a step forward. Dad, it's not what you think. We just what? Michael interrupted him. I trusted you both. I felt tears well up in my eyes. Michael, we're sorry. We never meant for it to end up like this. He looked at me with despair. How could you? Alex lowered his head. I'll leave tomorrow. I don't want to cause more trouble. Michael threw the letter on the floor. You'd better leave right now. I tried to approach him, but he stepped back. Don't come near me, Emma. I don't know who you are anymore. The night shattered any illusion of peace. I was left standing alone in the hallway, feeling the world around me collapse.